So then moving on here more specifically to this PLL Championship Series, which was announced last week that it's coming to Utah. It'll be at Zions Bank Stadium July 25th through August 9th. It'll be 20 games over that 16-day stretch, and I looked at the schedule yesterday, they only have about 2 or 3 off days during that 2.5 weeks or so. Probably just due to availability of the stadium or something, I would assume. And each of the 7 teams are going to get those 4 regular season games. The schedules were just announced about an hour or two ago, and then the playoffs, all 7 teams will be seeded by their record in those 4 games, along with their goal differentials in those games as well. So my question for both of you, and we can start with Jordan again, is who are your teams going into this championship series? Like, who do you guys think is going to be the team that gets it done and wins the championship?
It's too early to say, but right now, if I have to solely make a pick on my life, I'm just gonna say it's the Atlas, and I'm so
Wow.
and I'm not a bandwagon anything like that. But I see they are loaded with two-way midfielders, and the thing about this championship series, and not just two-way midfielders, I'll say guys in general that are versatile, that can switch D guys, that can play LSM, whatnot. Kyle Hartzell can face off if you need him to.
Right.
Like that. That's what I think is going to make the difference. Is just because it's not like you're going week to week to week to where you can make adjustments. You can go get a guy off the street, whatever. You're going to have to get creative. So I don't know how many of these midfielders they're bringing, but whichever the crop is, it's going to be talented. And a lot of these guys that may be traditional O-middies may have to go play defense or whatnot. So, like, you take a guy like Romar, for example. If they bring Romar and he can play defense for them, that's valuable. And and they have the most bodies in that midfield, which I think is ultimately it's going to be a test. Who can survival of the fittest? I think who can get to that playoff round without having their team being hurt, or have just the rest factor in general, because it's going to be hot.
Yeah, and that depth in that midfield unit should help as far as, like you said, with the rest and guys rehabbing if they get a little banged up from one game to the next. So yeah, definitely having that depth, especially at a position like midfield where you might be playing, like you said, playing both ends of the field a lot, that will definitely help them, I think, throughout that 2-week period.
And from my end, it's really hard to say who I think is going to win it. I want to study a little bit more everybody, but to comment on it for sure, I think that one thing is I think Chrome is going to be they're going to really come out this year. Last year, their offense was stacked. They lost a number of games by just one goal in overtime at the end of the game, things like that. But if you remember, a couple of games they won were chaos, and they set the record for most goals scored in a game. And the other was Whip Snakes, where, if I'm not mistaken, they beat their own record for scoring goals in a game. And now they added Matt Gaudette. Matt Gaudette is a huge piece of that attack. You have Buddy, who's one of the most accurate shooters in the league. You have Jordan Wolf, who I've said 100 times, I will continue to say it, is the fastest attack man off the dodge. If he gets one step, forget it. And now you have Gaudette, who can get in the middle, is not afraid to get dirty, to get roughed up, to get into those fights right in front of the goal. Crafty Canadian that doesn't need a lot of space. So I think they're going to be incredibly dangerous this year. I think Atlas, like you said, Atlas is huge. Eric Law, I think, if I'm not mistaken, had the highest goal-to-shot ratio, I think, last year, if not in the top 3. So we all know how good he is. Ryan Brown, he has the most deadly shot in the game because he doesn't just look at a goal and shoot. He picks wherever he wants.
Yep.
And he mixes it up all game long. And while we all like to think about Pennell with Rabel, which is a big connection, people tend to forget Pennell also had Ryan Brown in the wing during the USA game. And while Ryan Brown isn't a huge dodging attackman, if he has any space at all to get those hands free, any space at all, he is beyond deadly. And Pinnell from X, who's going to draw some defenders, giving Ryan Brown that space, that's a lot of trouble. And we all know the Archers attack. I don't know how much I need to get into them, but we all know how crazy that is. Holman on one side, Manny on the other, two of the most accurate attackmen. Now you add someone that was one of the best feeders in college lacrosse history, and then you got Tommy Gunn Shriver running down the middle. That speaks for itself. And every team is stacked. Every team has made incredible additions in the offseason, like we just talked about with Salcido and Miles Jones. Everyone has really done a great job with adding in this offseason. I think the Water Dogs are also going to come on very strong. They've got an impressive rounded team. They could use maybe a specialist to face off, but outside of that, they're going to do big things. I will say, in terms of the tournament specifically, and I'm sorry, I'm just kind of going off right now.
Oh no, you're absolutely fine.
In terms of the tournament, couple factors. Number one, these guys are wildly competitive. We saw it last year. We literally saw someone throw a punch last year. Nick Casello literally threw a punch and then got body slammed. Like, these guys are so competitive. But now, you take that much of competitiveness and you cram them all into a hotel room, or not a hotel room, all into a hotel, where they're seeing each other in the elevators, they're seeing each other at breakfast. You have that many games in a short period of time, where before, maybe you lose the first 3 weeks. Not a big deal. We got a week in between games. We'll go forward. 3 games isn't a lot. Well, now 3 games is a lot. So we're going to see that. I think in the tournament, the number 1 seed gets a bye. That is going to be hugely important for these guys to get that rest. That's going to, like, that one spot is going to be a big deal.
Absolutely.
On top of that, injuries are the other thing that I want to mention. Injuries. Before, maybe some guy sprains his ankle. Oh, he's out for 4 games. Well, 4 games is 4 weeks. That's a long time. Now you sprain your ankle, that might be it. And now you've got limited rosters. That's going to play a big factor. So we've got a lot of pieces going into this tournament. I think it's going to be a special thing. And one last thing, and then I'll turn it over. I know I'm kind of railroading here the conversation, but one last thing is I'm going to be interested to see if they're going to rest players. If the Whip Snakes are up and they've got a fair lead, they feel comfortable, do you pull out Matt Rambo at the end of the 3rd quarter or halfway through the 4th to make sure he doesn't get hurt, to rest him? Do you do that with Garnsey? Do you do it with Rabel, Pinnell, whoever? I'll be interested to see if coaches kind of pull those players out a little bit early to make sure they don't risk getting, or just risk getting them just so worn down and beat up.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that the score differential definitely plays a factor into that, because it's not about just getting the win and, like you said, getting up by a lot and then saying, okay, we can take our foot off the gas and rest some of these guys, because if you take those guys out and then the other team makes a comeback and they start inching a little bit closer, each goal that you now give up could end up coming back to haunt you in the end of the 4 games.
And real quick, do you guys think is winning that bet that Kyle Hartzell and Ocello had? We'll find out tonight if Ocello makes the roster. That's $1,000 on the line, man.
Oh.
I think you gotta have Ocello on the roster. I mean, come on, he's fun, and every team needs that guy to lighten up the locker room. He's intense. He has the passion. He's not afraid to get hit, and he's not afraid to lay the hit. I'm a big fan of Ocello. I've talked to him a number of times. He's so cool. I love watching him play. So He better. That's all I gotta say.